More dramatic video today at the Laken Riley murder trial. Prosecutors say that's the suspect, an undocumented migrant hunting for women before he found and attacked nursing student Laken, who was out on her morning jog.
Hunting for women. That's what prosecutors say the man accused of killing nursing student Laken Riley was doing. The trial in Georgia continued today with video being played allegedly showing illegal immigrant Jose Ibarra lurking around a University of Georgia apartment complex. It shows the man going to the door of a student apartment. Then he goes to the back of the building to peep inside the ground-level bedrooms. After a full hour of going back and forth, he can be seen skulking around a bus stop near the jogging trail. There's Laken Riley running by the same location. It's the last known video of her alive. The timestamp shows 9:06 a.m. 5 minutes later, she was attacked. The day after the slaying, body cam footage shows police looking for Ibarra at the apartment he shared with his two brothers. They wake him up and tell him to get out of bed and come outside. They ask him about scratch marks on his arms.
I noticed on his right bicep there was a scratch. On his left arm, he had a forearm scratch, which looked like fingernail scratches to me.
On February 22nd, 2024, at exactly 9:09 a.m., a 22-year-old nursing student's heart stopped beating in the woods behind Lake Herrick. Her killer had been prowling the campus for hours, dressed in what prosecutors would later call his gear. Black gloves, a hoodie, and pure evil intent. He went hunting that morning, and Laken Hope Riley became his prey. What you're about to hear is more than just another true crime story. It's a nightmare that could have been prevented, a tragedy that sparked nationwide outrage, and a case so horrifying that even seasoned investigators struggled to process the evidence. Before we dive into this devastating story, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because cases like this remind us that evil doesn't respect borders, and we need to stay connected, stay informed, and stay vigilant together. This is Cold Crime Cases, and I'm your host. Today, we're examining a murder that sent shockwaves through the University of Georgia, divided a nation on immigration policy, and forever changed how we think about campus safety. The evidence in this case is overwhelming. The details are disturbing, and the implications reach far beyond one college campus. So buckle in, because what happened to Laken Riley in those woods will haunt you long after this video ends. Laken Hope Riley was everything you'd want in a daughter, a friend, a future nurse. At 22, she radiated the kind of warmth that drew people to her like moths to flame. Her dream wasn't fame or fortune. It was simpler, more beautiful than that. She wanted to heal children, to be the gentle hands that soothed scared kids in hospital rooms. 3 to 6 times a week, Laken would lace up her running shoes and hit the trails around the University of Georgia campus. She transferred there from Augusta Medical College in May 2023, chasing her dream of becoming a pediatric nurse. Running wasn't just exercise for her. It was meditation, therapy, her time to think and plan for a future that would never come. Usually, she ran with Connolly, one of her 3 roommates. They'd chat, laugh, push each other to go that extra mile. But on February 22nd, 2024, Laken decided to run alone. One decision, one moment that changed everything. At 9:03 a.m., security cameras captured Laken leaving her home near campus. She looked like any other college student starting her day, ponytail bouncing, white AirPods in her ears, phone in her left hand. She was heading to the intramural fields, a sprawling area of soccer fields, tennis courts, trails, and Lake Herrick itself. Students loved it there. It felt safe. It felt like home. 2 minutes into her run, cameras caught her again, moving south on Millage Avenue Extension. She was in her element, that fluid rhythm that only serious runners know. Her smartwatch was recording every heartbeat, every step, creating a digital timeline that would later become crucial evidence in solving her murder. At 9:09 a.m., everything changed. Laken's Garmin smartwatch captured the exact moment her world exploded into chaos. She went from running to a complete standstill in seconds. Whatever she saw, whatever confronted her on that trail, it stopped her cold. And in that moment of terror, her training kicked in. She tried to call for help. The 911 call that followed would become one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in Georgia's criminal history.
Clark County 911. Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me?
Hello, 911, hello. The voice was Laken's, but it was wrong. Strained. Desperate. You can hear her trying to speak, trying to get help, but something was stopping her. Is anyone there? Then came the sounds that no one should ever have to hear. A brief, muffled voice in the background, her attacker. Scuffling. The sounds of a struggle. And then 4 thuds. For impacts that investigators would later determine were rocks being used to crush Laken's skull. The call lasted 60 seconds before her phone disconnected. 60 seconds that contained a lifetime of horror. When dispatchers called back, no one answered. Laken Hope Riley would never answer another phone call. But here's what makes this case even more tragic. This wasn't random bad luck. Her killer had been hunting for hours that morning, stalking female students, looking for the perfect victim. And I have to ask you something as we dive deeper into this nightmare. If you're still here, still watching, but you haven't subscribed to this channel, I'm honestly curious what's holding you back. I spend hours researching cases like this, reading autopsy reports, police files, listening to desperate 911 calls that families never want to hear. The least you can do is hit that red subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me why you haven't yet. I genuinely want to understand. Connolly, Laken's roommate and running partner, was in class that morning, completely unaware that her best friend was fighting for her life just miles away. At 11:15 a.m., she finally checked her phone and felt her blood run cold. Multiple missed calls. Frantic texts from their other roommates, Lily and Sophia. Voice messages from Laken's younger sister, Lauren, asking if anyone had heard from her. At first, they thought it might be the AT&T service outage that had hit the area that morning. Technical problems, nothing more. But as the hours ticked by and Laken didn't respond, they knew something was terribly wrong. Laken always answered her phone. Always. Lily had returned to their house and confirmed their worst fear. Laken hadn't come home from a run. Using the share location feature on their phones, she discovered that Laken's device was somewhere in the forest near the intramural fields, and it hadn't moved for hours. When Sophia returned from taking an exam, she found Lily in full panic mode. They grabbed Lily's dog Champ and set out along the trail Laken would have taken, following the GPS ping on their phones like some twisted treasure hunt. They walked into the woods, calling Laken's name, hoping against hope they'd find her with a sprained ankle or a dead phone battery. Instead, Champ found a single white AirPod buried in the leaves. They knew immediately it was Laken's, and in that moment, their world collapsed.
Hi, we're calling because our roommate went out for a run at 9. She usually runs like through Lake Herrick behind grad housing, and we haven't heard from her. And we all just got like service back, so we don't think it has anything to do with the outage. We went to go look to where her last location was, and all we found was an AirPod.
Okay, have you tried calling her since she just got service back?
Her family doesn't have AT&T, so the one with the power outage, so they've had service the whole time, and her calls have been ringing through. We're just not getting answers.
What's your name?
My name's Sophia Madonna.
And what's your friend's name?
Her name's Laken Riley.
The 911 call from Lily and Sophia was everything Laken's call hadn't been: clear, coherent, desperate, but functional. They explained about the service outages, about finding the AirPod, about how this wasn't like Laken at all. Sergeant Kenneth Maxwell of the University of Georgia Police Department took a screenshot of Laken's phone location and distributed it to his colleagues alongside Laken's photo. He launched a search of the intramural fields, following the trails toward where a phone had last pinged. At 12:38 p.m., Sergeant Maxwell made a discovery that would haunt him forever. "I found it, ma'am. Ma'am. Oh, God." His body camera captured everything. The moment he spotted something that didn't belong in those woods. The realization of what he was looking at. The desperate attempt to find signs of life where there were none. Laken Hope Riley was found 64 feet from the nearest trail, partially concealed under a large tree with leaves and brush covering her body. Her killer had tried to hide what he'd done, but he'd done a sloppy job. Maybe he was in a hurry. Maybe he was panicking. Maybe he just didn't care. She had sustained massive blunt force trauma to the left side of her head. 2 rocks nearby were covered in her blood. The murder weapons that had ended a life full of promise. Her phone was eventually found under a different tree, thrown aside like garbage after her killer realized it might contain evidence. But he'd made a crucial mistake. On the screen of that phone was a clear fingerprint from a left thumb, and it wasn't Laken's. The autopsy results would reveal the full extent of the horror Laken endured in her final moments. She hadn't died just from the head trauma. She'd also experienced asphyxiation. Her killer had tried to strangle her, tried to silence her screams, but she'd fought back with everything she had. Her clothing was in disarray, her top half exposed. Investigators concluded that her attacker had intended to rape her, but she fought so hard, resisted so fiercely, that he couldn't complete his sick fantasy. So he killed her instead. The smartwatch data told a story that breaks your heart and fills you with rage at the same time. After Laken stopped running, at 9:09 a.m., she remained on the trail for 4 minutes. For minutes of terror, of fighting, of trying to escape. The 911 call happened during those 4 minutes. Then she was moved over 60 feet into the woods, dragged or forced at gunpoint, struggling every step of the way. Her watch registered a heartbeat until 9:28 a.m., 17 minutes after she stopped running. 17 minutes of hell before her brave heart finally gave out. While Laken was taking her last breaths, her killer was already planning his escape. He walked calmly to a blue recycling bin in a nearby apartment complex and discarded his blood-soaked jacket like it was yesterday's newspaper. A jacket covered in Laken's blood and 29 strands of her hair. Hair that showed signs of being violently torn for her scalp as she fought for her life. The apartment complex was only a few hundred yards from where Laken died. Her killer lived there. He'd walked home after murdering her, changed his clothes, and tried to go on with his day like nothing had happened. But technology was about to become his worst enemy. A doorbell camera at the apartment complex captured everything. At 9:44 a.m., just 16 minutes after Laken's heart stopped beating, a male figure strolled up to the recycling bin. He removed an Adidas cap from his head, examined it briefly, then put it back on. He tossed the bloody jacket into the bin with the casual indifference of someone throwing away a fast food wrapper. Then he walked along the side of the building and discarded 3 black, disposable kitchen gloves in the bushes. One had a visible tear over the thumb, the same thumb that had left a print on Laken's phone. These gloves were also covered in her blood. The next morning, University of Georgia police got the break they'd been praying for. Outside that same apartment complex, they spotted a man wearing a black Adidas cap identical to the one worn by the suspected killer. The man was Diego Ibarra, a 26-year-old Venezuelan national, living there illegally with his 2 brothers and 1 woman. But it wasn't Diego who caught their attention. It was his brother, Jose Antonio Ibarra, emerging from his bedroom with scratches covering his arms, hands, and the back of his neck. Fresh scratches, recent scratches, battle wounds from a fight he'd barely survived. When officers asked Jose about his red, swollen knuckles, he claimed his hands were cold. When they asked about the obvious scratches covering his body, he did something that chilled investigators to bone. He looked them straight in the eye and claimed the scratches weren't there. Despite being covered in visible wounds, he denied they existed. But Jose made one crucial mistake during that conversation. When officers asked him to lift his hair so they could examine his face, he casually mentioned that he usually wore a hat. He gestured toward his brother Diego, saying he often wore a hat just like the Adidas one Diego was wearing that morning. That single comment tied him directly to the killer in the doorbell camera footage. When police obtained a warrant for the apartment, they found black disposable gloves in the kitchen drawer, gloves matching the bloody ones found in the bushes. Diego and the woman living there, Rose Belly Flores, both identified Jose as the man in the dumpster video. They confirmed he'd been wearing Diego's Adidas hat the day of the murder. But the most damning evidence came from Jose's own phone. At 4:30 a.m. and again at 5:37 a.m. on the morning of February 22nd, Jose had taken selfies of himself wearing the black Adidas hat and the dark hooded jacket, the same jacket that would later test positive for Laken's blood. He'd posted these photos online, essentially documenting his hunting outfit just hours before he used it to commit murder. Think about that for a moment. Jose Ibarra took pictures of himself in the clothes he planned to use to assault and murder a college student. He was so confident he'd get away with it that he posted the evidence on social media himself. Multiple doorbell cameras captured Jose's movements the night before and the day of the murder, wearing the same clothing. After killing Laken, he'd changed clothes and appeared on camera again at 10:30 a.m. the next day, walking toward another dumpster with a plastic bag. 3 minutes later, he returned without the bag. The dumpster was emptied 45 minutes later during regular collection. The shirt Jose wore under the jacket was never found. Neither was the small backpack investigators saw him carrying on camera. These items were likely in that plastic bag, destroyed forever when the garbage truck came. But Jose had already left enough evidence to convict him a dozen times over. These cases remind us how dangerous the world can be, especially for young women just trying to live their lives. That's why I created a survival guide that shows you real safety strategies drawn from true crime stories like this one, my book True Crime Survival Guide. How to Stay Safe in a Dangerous World goes deeper than these videos ever could, with practical tips that could literally save your life. The link is waiting for you in the description and the pinned comment. Don't wait until it's too late. The forensic evidence against Jose Ibarra was overwhelming. His left thumbprint matched the one on Laken's cell phone. DNA from underneath Laken's fingernails matched Jose, explaining those fresh scratches he'd tried to deny. Her blood was on his jacket and gloves. Her hair was tangled in the jacket buttons, torn for her scalp as she fought desperately to survive. GPS data from Jose's phone placed him in the exact location where Laken was murdered at the exact time she died. Cell tower pings and the lack of Wi-Fi connections confirmed he was in those woods with her. There was no ambiguity, no reasonable doubt, no possibility of mistaken identity. Jose Antonio Ibarra had brutally murdered Laken Hope Riley, and the evidence proved it beyond any shadow of a doubt. But as the case developed, public outrage began to focus on more than just the killer. Jose Ibarra was in the United States illegally. He'd crossed the border in September 2022, been arrested, and then released on parole. What followed was a pattern of crimes that should have landed him in custody long before he ever encountered Laken Riley. In New York, Jose had been charged with acting in a manner to injure a child and motor vehicle violations. He'd been driving a moped with his 5-year-old child, neither wearing helmets, while doing food deliveries. New York officials released him before a detainer could be issued. Later, in Georgia, Jose and his brother Diego were arrested for shoplifting at Walmart. Again, they were released with just a citation. No formal booking, no immigration check, no consequences. 2 chances to remove a dangerous predator from the streets. 2 chances to save Laken Riley's life. Both opportunities were squandered by a system more concerned with procedure than protection. The political implications of this case exploded across the national stage. Representative Mike Collins introduced the Laken Riley Act, requiring detention of immigrants who commit burglary or theft. The bill passed the House with bipartisan support, highlighting just how egregious this preventable tragedy truly was. Former President Trump referenced the case repeatedly during campaign events, while President Biden mentioned it during the State of the Union. Laken Riley became a symbol in the immigration debate, her name invoked by politicians who'd never known her warmth, her dreams, her gentle spirit that wanted nothing more than to heal sick children. Her family pleaded for her memory not to be used as a political weapon. They wanted her remembered as the beautiful person she was, not as a talking point in someone else's agenda. But in a presidential election year, their wishes were largely ignored. As we near the end of this devastating story, I have to address something that's been bothering me. This video represents hours of painful research, reading autopsy reports, police files, watching body camera footage that no human should ever have to see. If you made it this far, but still haven't subscribed, I'm genuinely curious why. Imagine if this was your daughter, your sister, your best friend. Would you want their story buried under the noise of social media, or told with the care and respect they deserved? Subscribing helps ensure that no victim story fades away. If you're not ready to subscribe, that's okay, but at least tell me why in the comments. Help me understand what I could do better. Jose Ibarra was scheduled to stand trial in November 2024 on 10 counts: malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, hindering a 911 call, assault with intent to rape, and peeping Tom charges. But the evidence revealed something even more sinister about that morning. Jose hadn't just randomly encountered Laken on the trail. He'd been hunting for victims since before dawn. Starting around 6:50 a.m., security cameras captured a suspicious figure in dark clothing lurking near apartment buildings, carrying a white cup. The person went to the door of an apartment 6 times before 8 a.m., twice attempting to open it. Inside, a female graduate student heard noises while getting ready for her day. When she heard her front door being tried, she called out. The figure ducked down to avoid being seen, then fled. She immediately called 911, but when officers responded, the stalker had vanished. A similar white cup was found sitting outside the tree line, where Laken's body was discovered, almost exactly halfway between the crime scene and the graduate student's apartment. DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Jose Ibarra. The cup contained alcohol. As Special Prosecutor Sheila Ross would later argue, on February 22nd, Jose Ibarra put on a black hat, a hoodie-style jacket, and black kitchen-style disposable gloves, and he went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. Jose waived his right to a jury trial, perhaps hoping to avoid the bias and notoriety surrounding the case. His defense team tried desperately to deflect evidence, suggesting his brother Diego could have been the killer. But the DNA evidence was ironclad. Only Jose's genetic material was found under Laken's fingernails. Only his thumbprint was on her phone. FBI agent James Burney presented comprehensive GPS data that tracked both Jose's phone and Laken's devices, creating a digital map of their tragic intersection in those woods. Diego had been working at the university dining hall during the murder and had no physical evidence linking him to the crime. Over 3 days of testimony, Jose Ibarra showed virtually no emotion. He sat stoically as an interpreter relayed the devastating case against him. He stared into space when Laken's 911 call was played for court, showing no reaction when Sergeant Maxwell's body camera footage revealed his discovery of her broken body in the woods. Laken's 3 roommates, Connolly, Lily, and Sophia, took the stand and described their frantic search for their friend. Many family members left the courtroom before the most graphic evidence was presented. They couldn't bear to see what had been done to someone they loved so much. The evidence was overwhelming. The DNA results left no room for doubt. As Prosecutor Sheila Ross told the court, there is no way out for him. The evidence in this case has been overwhelming, and the evidence in this case has spoken loud and clear that he is Laken Riley's killer. He killed her because she would not let him rape her. She pointed to Jose's actions 73 minutes before encountering Laken. The stalking, the attempted break-in, the hunting behavior that revealed his true intentions. Not only does the physical evidence identify him, the video evidence identifies him, his own brother identifies him, his roommate condemns him, but his digital evidence of posting selfies of himself wearing what is basically his rapist gear condemns him. He has condemned himself. After a 20-minute recess, Judge H. Patrick Haggard returned with a verdict everyone expected but dreaded to hear. Count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Guilty on all 10 counts. Jose Antonio Ibarra had been convicted of one of the most heinous crimes in Georgia's recent history. During the sentencing phase, Laken's family and friends share heartbreaking victim impact statements. Her mother, Allison Phillips, stepfather, John Phillips, Sister Lauren, and Father Jason Riley all spoke about the vibrant young woman whose life had been cut short by a monster's selfish desires. Lauren Riley's words capture the family's anguish. I think about how my sister saw exactly what was coming and had no way of preventing it. I think about how scared she must have been, and how that man is the only one to truly witness that scene. I'm not sure why he did this to my Laken, and I know I will never understand. She described sitting in the same room as the man who murdered her sister. That predator is inhumane and is the epitome of evil. Jose Antonio Ibarra has completely and utterly ruined my life, and I can only hope and pray that he receives a sentence that ruins his. Judge Haggard sentenced Jose Ibarra to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While many call for the death penalty, the sentence ensures he'll never again have the opportunity to hunt, to stalk, to destroy another innocent life. The case of Laken Hope Riley represents more than just another senseless murder. It's a reminder that evil exists in this world, that predators walk among us, and that one moment of being in the wrong place at the wrong time can change everything forever. Laken was doing something millions of people do every day, going for a run to stay healthy and clear her mind. She had no way of knowing that a monster had been prowling the campus for hours, looking for exactly someone like her. She fought back with incredible courage, leaving her DNA under his fingernails and her thumbprint on evidence that would eventually convict him. Even in her final moments, she was helping to solve her own murder. Her dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse will never be realized. She'll never heal another scraped knee or comfort another scared child in a hospital room. Her younger sister will never have her role model and best friend to turn to for advice. Her parents will never walk her down the aisle or hold their grandchildren, all because one evil man decided to go hunting that morning. But Laken's story doesn't end in those woods. Her memory lives on in the safety measures now implemented on college campuses nationwide. Her name is attached to legislation designed to prevent other families from enduring this nightmare. Most importantly, she's remembered by everyone who knew her as a beautiful soul who wanted nothing more than to make the world a little bit better. If you love true crime, but also want to learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones, my book, True Crime Survival Guide, How to Stay Safe in a Dangerous World, is available now. It contains practical strategies drawn from cases like this one, lessons that could save your life or someone you care about. You can grab your copy through the link in the description and pinned comment. Don't wait until it's too late to learn these crucial safety skills. This case reminds us that we can't control the evil that exists in this world, but we can control how we prepare for it. We can be more aware of our surroundings, more cautious about isolated areas, more proactive about our personal safety. We owe that much to Laken's memory and to ourselves. Thank you for watching this difficult but important case. Please subscribe to Cold Crime Cases if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments how this story affected you. Share this video if you think others need to hear Laken's story. Together, we can ensure that her memory continues to protect others from the predators who walk among us. Until next time, stay safe out there. And remember, we tell these stories not to frighten you, but to prepare you, because knowledge is power, and in cases like this, that power can mean the difference between life and death. Rest in peace, Laken Hope Riley. Your story will not be forgotten.